Welcome to the LeaderTreks Youth Ministry Trainingcast with Doug Franklin, where we help youth workers like yourself be intentional. Welcome to the LeaderTreks Youth Ministry Trainingcast. I'm Taryn.
I'm Doug.
I think you really love saying that. Love doing that intro. We're glad to be here with you all today here on the Trainingcast. We got a fun Trainingcast for you in this round. For a long time, we've been noticing various trends in youth ministry about why adult volunteers serve. Now, it shouldn't come as a surprise to you that no volunteer comes in with the same reason of why they want to serve in youth ministry. Everybody's got a different reason.
I don't think youth pastors think about that. I think when youth pastors sometimes see an adult volunteer who's ready to serve, they sometimes think it's because of the exact same reason that they serve. Like, I love students, I want them to know Christ, I want them to grow in their relationship with Christ, and they think that's the same motivation that they have as what the adult volunteer has. Some do, but I think ones that have been around for just a few years are starting to realize, well, maybe they have different motivations.
Different thoughts, different motives. But we've been kind of taking a look at this, trying to understand what is driving a lot of our different adult volunteers. And because folks have been talking about the Enneagram, it feels like for a solid year and a half.
If not longer.
We thought let's capitalize on what folks are already talking about and let's put these different motivations into Enneagram types just to make it easy to understand, easy to relate with. So we're going to walk through what we would call the youth volunteer Enneagram.
Okay, we didn't start thinking about this. We started just thinking about the motivations.
Yes.
But then when we started looking at the motivations, we're like, this is right out of the Enneagram. Right. So it kind of makes sense that they would actually correlate because the Enneagram is really about the motivations of people. So this was actually a lot easier than we thought it was going to be, and we're hoping to capitalize on the excitement of the Enneagram. So we're getting on the Enneagram train, which my wife is on like crazy. So I feel like I know this stuff pretty well now.
No, and lots of youth workers are on the train too. We're going to join you there and have some fun today. Now, you may not agree with every single statement that we make today. I hope that you agree with us on all the other training casts, but you may not agree with us on every one here. But don't worry about it. Use this as a way to generate conversations with your adult volunteers to figure out what is it that really clicks and really resonates with them. Why do they want to serve in youth ministry? If you can figure that out, it makes a big difference.
Well, yeah, because then you can help them be successful. So if we get to this motivation, we know what it is, we can actually help the adult volunteer do it. They're going to feel successful and stay long term, which always makes for better youth ministry.
That it does. So let's start tackling them one by one. We'll start with the ones. You all know that the one on the Enneagram is considered the reformer. Where we see this connection in youth ministry is the adult volunteer who is very motivated to make sure that students don't make the same mistakes that they did. Doug, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I see this person all the time who's like, I'm involved in youth ministry because I really screwed it up in high school and I don't want to see these students go through what I went through. I don't want to see them have the emotional pain. Right. I don't want to see them carry some of the scars that I carry, some of the wounds that I carry. And so I'm getting into the youth ministry because I want to keep people from doing something that I did. Here's kind of the downfall of this motivation, is that oftentimes God uses every one of our experiences to draw us closer to Him. And so while we want to support students and drive them in the right direction and help them think about their life in terms of the big picture and not make mistakes and all those kind of things and follow God's word, at the same time, we can't build a bubble around our students and say, don't try anything, just stay safe in this bubble. So these adults have got to give students a little bit of leeway, but they also need to share their story of redemption. Whatever happened to them in high school and college, which created those wounds, God has been restoring through His redemption process. And so these adult volunteers, we need to continue to help them tell their story of what God is doing in their life since high school and continues to do in their life as they are going through the redemption process that we're all going through, because that story is beautiful and that story is powerful. So if you've got some adult volunteers who have this motivation, remember to challenge them to continue to tell their story of what God has done, not just protect kids from doing anything wrong. That's the key here.
Right. That story is a powerful tool before a student has gone down that road, but also after a student has gone down that road. Their story is just as powerful, just as meaningful, just as great an example of grace in the life of that student.
Yeah, amen.
So that's the one. That's the reformer. Two, we've got the helper. I see this person in youth ministry a lot. This is the person who is motivated to serve the youth pastor.
Yeah. They heard the youth pastor say, we need some adult volunteers in youth ministry. And what they heard was, Youth Pastor Bob needs me to drive the van, to flip the burgers, and to do the support logistics for him. So I am here to serve him. The problem with this motivation, the problem is that Youth Pastor Bob thinks they're there to build a relationship with students that leads to transformation. And sometimes they can find themselves on two very different paths. And so when you've got adult volunteers that are motivated to serve the youth worker, man, the best thing to do with them is to put them into a logistical role, not necessarily a discipleship and mentoring role. And this is something you got to really think about when you're interviewing that volunteer at the very beginning or onboarding them into the ministry, is to think about what is their motivation to put them in the right place. Because honestly, if they get into logistics to support you, they might kill it. They might take a lot off your plate. They might open up a lot of space in your schedule. So understanding this motivation is really important. This is one of those things where when we understand it right, we're able to put the adult volunteer into the right role and can make a real difference for them.
Yeah. So much of this episode of our Trainingcast is designed to help you find their sweet spot of what is the ministry role where they're gonna serve best. So we got the one, we got the two. The three is the achiever. We see this person in youth ministry as the one who is deeply motivated to see kids come to know Christ, the evangelists on your team.
Think Greg Steer here. You know, the motivation is they want students to start that relationship with Jesus Christ, and so they're the ones in the small group that end every small group with, does anybody want to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ? Which is awesome, which is really great. They're the ones encouraging the other adult volunteers to do the same thing. They're the ones who are inviting students to bring their friends and to do that. These folks are a little bit of a unicorn sometimes, because these evangelists tend not to necessarily always come into youth ministry, but if they do, they're going to find a target-rich environment, right? And they're going to find a lot of students that don't know Christ and a chance for them to be able to share Christ. The downside of this motivation sometimes is that they don't think about training students to be able to go on their campus and share their faith. They want to do it. So having them think about training other people to do what they love can be a great way to use this motivation to help the whole youth ministry grow. When you've got these people, you've got really something special.
You do. And especially think about unleashing them at your outreach events and how effective, how impactful that type could be in that setting. It could be huge.
Yeah, wonderful actually.
I love that the four follows the three. The four is the individualist. It's that person in youth ministry who's very concerned about individual students and is probably diving into very deep mentoring, discipleship focused conversations.
This would be me. If I was looking at these motivations and saying which one is me, this would be me. I love the apostleship gift that God has given me to sit with a student and to help them grow in their relationship with Christ. Here's one of the big issues that I see in youth ministry today is we have millions of students going to youth group, standing at the starting line of their faith, and they're doing some Bible study and some discussion groups, but they're really not getting discipled and really growing in their walk with Christ. So what we really want to do here is make sure that these individuals with this motivation are given a lot of space to disciple, that they're given room to even mentor and do a few other things, and really given the tools and the training to be able to do that effectively. This person is your great small group leader and may also be your cohort leader. Like they could oversee 5, 10 small groups and help those small group leaders be really effective at discipleship. I would imagine that a lot of these people grew up in the faith, were discipled at some time in their life, and see the value of discipleship. So This motivation, along with the evangelist, such a good motivation to have in youth ministry.
Great tag team as well.
Yeah.
Then we've got the 5. The 5 is the investigator. How we see this playing out in youth ministry is that typically it's a parent who's coming in with the motivation of trying to figure out what is going on in the youth ministry, and particularly who are their students' friends.
Right. I mean, you see this all the time. You get the dad that shows up and says, I'd like to volunteer in youth ministry. You've never seen this dad before, right? And you're like, wait a minute, why is this dad here? I used to ask, whenever I get these dads, when I was a youth pastor, I'd say, hey, did your wife tell you to come volunteer? And they would be like, yeah, my wife told me to come volunteer. I'm like, what? Why are you volunteering? Kind of want to keep an eye on my daughter and her friends and see who's her friends. That's great. That's awesome. There's a role for these volunteers to play, but understanding this motivation allows you to realize the best way to utilize them. I had a buddy in Dallas who had a couple of these dads, and he utilized them by putting them at the front door of church, and their job was to high five, appropriately hug a student or whatever when they came in, so that students felt like $1 million when they came into youth group, and to make sure that the wrong people did not come into youth group. And 20 minutes after youth group started, they just left, closed the doors and left. And they could see what was going on. They got a good idea of who the friends were. He met their need. And at the same time, they met a really important need for that youth group. And so you can find the right role for these volunteers. Just understanding this motivation will really help, because you don't want to have an adult who's just spinning their wheels for 2 or 3 years and you find out, they're not actually here for the youth ministry. They're just here to see their kid. Yep. And I think you really want to uncover this and then utilize these volunteers in the best way possible.
Definitely. The 6, now the 6 is the loyalist. This is the person who's very motivated to keep students safe. It's the chaperone of your ministry.
Right. They like to stand near the bathroom door and like, no, don't go to the bathroom now. Go to the bathroom. Okay, now you can go to the bathroom. Or they're the ones who want to talk about vehicle safety and making sure that the vehicles are already safe. And they're the ones that are on the missions trip going, I don't know if this is safe. Correct. I don't know if this is... Now, they play in a very important role in our youth ministry, but they can also have a negative effect when we want to help students understand that to be a Christ follower means you take risks, because Christ meets you there, and Christ will do more than we can ever anticipate or expect if we're willing to do it. So this is an important person in the ministry. They need to play an important role. They always ask about liability and whether or not we're going to hurt anything at church, but we want to keep students safe. It's a big part of it. But at the same time, we want to challenge them to think about how students can grow by taking appropriate risks. And talking about appropriate risks with them, I think, is really important. Because I think a lot of times these people look at us as youth workers and think they are here to protect students from us. And that really isn't a healthy part of youth ministry. I've had these people in my youth ministry before, and I didn't really understand where they were really coming from. I thought they were just negative. And so by understanding them and helping them do what they want to be able to do and their motivation, but at the same time helping them leave room for God to work in students' lives, can be really important.
Mm-hmm. I love the idea of taking somebody who really has this motivation and coming along, asking them to come alongside you as you're getting ready for a parent meeting. Think about like the parent meeting before the mission trip of, all right, I want to make sure that I speak to parents' concerns. Can you help me process what are the things that our parents are going to have some fear about? And I'd love to be able to answer those questions right off the bat. I love being able to use that gifting.
That is a great place to use them. Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome.
Now the 7 is completely opposite the 6. The 7 is the enthusiast, and there are a lot of these in our youth ministries. These are the folks who are motivated to bring the energy, to bring the hype, to have a great time, and they may very well be motivated to relive their own days in youth group.
We all have this volunteer in youth ministry. That crazy, wacky 35-year-old dad who's participating in all the games like it's life or death, like dodgeball really matters. And this person could be wildly successful, especially in junior high youth ministry, where you want to have a lot of energy. Yes. But at the same time, you want to be really careful with this person, because this person can tend to lead the rebellion in youth groups sometimes, not being quiet when they need to be quiet, not participating by the rules. I was working with one church once, and they had brought me in to evaluate the youth ministry and what was happening. And there was just this guy who had this motivation, and he was causing all the trouble in youth group. And the youth pastor and the adult volunteers were all trying to wrangle him in the whole time. And so this can actually be a little bit of a downfall sometimes for a volunteer. So if you have a volunteer who has this, sit down with them, talk about what's appropriate behavior, what is appropriate, and how can they help and support you as you're pulling off the high energy games and activities and retreats and different things like that. They could be your game master. They could be the person who runs your games. They could be the person who brings the fun. But just having them really understand what's appropriate and what's not is really important for this motivation.
Yes. Then you've got the 8. The 8 is the challenger. This is the volunteer who is deeply motivated to be an advocate for the youth ministry, to make sure that this group of students is not overlooked, is not forgotten. They're the protector of that group. This is a very high value adult volunteer.
When I first started in youth ministry, a group of women approached me, older women, and said, "Do you think we could pray for the youth ministry?" And I said, "Yeah, you better believe it. That we would love for you to pray." And they said, no, what we're asking is, can we be in the room right next to the multi-purpose room, and can we pray for the hour and a half you're doing youth ministry? I thought, yeah, you're youth ministry volunteers that'll never interact with students, but you're going to pray. And so we would provide them with a prayer guide for what they should pray for that night, and they were in the room right next door praying for the students. The youth ministry flourished, and I think one of the reasons was these volunteers made all the difference in the world. Now, that's it on the really positive side. I've also seen these adults with this motivation come across as the youth group will never be good enough. The youth group just doesn't do enough. We should be doing more. We should have more impact. We should have more effect. And you can feel sometimes that the adult volunteers with this motivation are riding you a little bit. Like there's nothing that you can do that's really going to make them go, wow. And so sitting down with them and having a conversation and telling them about how you feel may allow them to realize that their motivation, which is a great one, is actually having a negative effect. And just by sharing your feelings, I know for some of us in youth ministry that's a little odd, but sharing our feelings about something can really help them understand that maybe it's not having the positive effect they want it to have, because their motivation is actually a positive one. They want to have a positive impact. But they're your great adult volunteer to go with you to the budget committee meeting when you're asking for your budget. Or they're the ones that are really great to go with you to that parent meeting and share about their experience in the youth ministry, because they're going to be that one. They're going to be that champion for you in some of those arenas. And so this can be a really positive motivation. But if you're feeling like some of the people with this motivation are riding you a little bit, I don't think that they probably know that that's how they're making you feel. And so talking to them could make a real difference.
And we'll wrap it up with the 9. The 9 is the peacemaker, and this is your adult volunteer who is motivated by a couple of things. One, they may be motivated to join the team, to hang out with their friends. Their friends are in youth ministry. They want to be in youth ministry alongside of their friends. That could be their motivation. They could also be that adult volunteer who you've asked and they just feel a lot of pressure to serve in the youth ministry. They feel a lot of pressure to say yes.
They heard the announcement that there was a need, and they feel like whenever they hear a need at church, they've got to fill it. They're probably involved in 2 or 3 other areas of church, by the way, and they still volunteered to be in youth ministry. I think really understanding their motivation, where they're coming from, and a sweet spot for them. It could be a logistical one. It could be in admin. It could be somewhere not necessarily on the front lines with students. But these folks, they play an important role. But I would say a lot of them serve out of duty, which is a kind of a funny word. But they serve because they have a sense and they feel this pressure to be involved and to do something. And also, too, is they could have some friends that invited them and they can't say no. There's those people, too. These people will never take you to the top of the mountain in your youth ministry, but if you find a great role for them, they will be a super support that will help other people take the mountain. And I think finding the right role for them is really important.
Yes. So we hope that this becomes a helpful tool, a helpful conversation starter for you as you're trying to understand where your adult volunteers are coming from and what they're motivated by.
You can even take this tool and sit down and try to put names next to all of these motivations and really begin to then ask yourself, based on that motivation, what is the greatest need these adult volunteers have, and begin to meet them, and that will have a huge effect on your youth ministry. We created the Hero membership so you can be more intentional in your youth ministry, and that you could get more organized, and that you could save big. For $99 a year, you'll gain access to these exclusive Hero membership benefits. Get intentional about discipleship with Hero membership. Hero members gain instant access to youth ministry apps featuring our unique student discipleship tracker. You and your volunteers can create a profile and an individual spiritual development plan for each student in the ministry. Using our unique discipleship maps, you'll take note of traces of depth in students' lives as well as potential warning signs. You can even share this profile with parents. The Hero Training Zone includes more than 20 video trainings for volunteers and youth workers, training on topics like how youth ministry works and building relationships and how to disciple a student. Inside the Hero Toolbox, you'll find discipleship activities for students like helping students pray or Bible study methods, along with resources for strategic planning and partnering with parents. Organize your youth ministry with Hero. Our online teacher management system allows you to share content, provide online access, and to communicate with your teachers and leaders. Simply input the email address of your leaders and decide which digital materials you want them to access. They will be able to access their teaching materials in our online curriculum center, and you can verify that they've logged in and spent time preparing for the lesson. You can even communicate with your leaders via our message center. With the Hero Media House, you'll save time with ready-to-use countdown videos, motion loops, and bumper videos. Save big with Hero. Considering a trip with LeaderTreks? Hero members get 2 free adults on a LeaderTreks mission trip or adventure trip. That's a potential savings of over $1,000. Hero members get free shipping year-round on physical orders over $25. Hero members also get exclusive Hero deals. You'll receive account credits, special discounts, and free resources. With Hero, you'll do better discipleship, you'll get better organized, and you'll save big. Become a Hero member today. Check it out.